My name is Lindsay Walker, and I'm a 36-year-old software developer living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I thought helping my sister in her darkest moment would bring us closer, until I learned she faked her husband's illness just to drain my bank account. Imagine giving everything to someone you love, only to realize they saw you as a wallet, not family. Stay with me, because what I did at the final family dinner still has my relatives whispering. Where are you watching this video from? Drop your city in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach. You ever walk into a room and instantly feel the tension waiting to pounce? That was me last month, stepping into my parents' colonial-style home just outside Charlotte. The dining room smelled of honey-glazed ham and rosemary potatoes, the kind of meal meant to pull family together. But I'd barely unzipped my coat before I saw that look on my sister Haley's face, the one that screamed, "Buckle up, Lindsay." Haley, my younger sister by 3 years, was perched at the table already half a glass of red in, swiping through something on her phone with that smirk she saves for special occasions, like publicly roasting me in front of family. Everyone else was laughing about old stories. Dad was carving the turkey, Mom humming to herself, my husband Aaron chatting with our cousin Nate about fantasy football. It was warm, cozy, until Haley dropped her fork and looked straight at me. "You know," she said, her voice smooth like poison in a cocktail, "some of us don't get paid for playing on computers all day." The laughter froze. My mom's hand paused mid-pour. Even my dad stopped slicing. There it was. Aaron shifted beside me, glancing my way like, want me to say something. But I've learned how to handle Haley's brand of venom. This wasn't our first family ambush. I let the silence stretch for just long enough to make her uncomfortable. "Haley," I said gently, folding my napkin on my lap, "if you ever want help finding your own path, just ask. I'd be happy to walk with you." A few gasps, one awkward cough. My cousin's wife looked thrilled. Clearly, the drama made her night. But Haley, she smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't touch your eyes. "Oh, sweetie," she said, swirling her wine, "I'm doing just fine. Not everyone needs to code for a living just to feel important." The rest of dinner played like a bad sitcom. Every time I answered a question, about work, about the conference I just spoke at, even about our new puppy, Haley had a comeback, each one dipped in sarcasm and jealousy. But what no one at that table knew, not even Aaron, was that I had already made a quiet decision that week. I was going to help Haley. For real. She'd been floundering as a freelance photographer for over a year now. Her Instagram was all sun flares and moody coffee cups, but behind the filters, she was struggling. I saw it, I felt it, and despite her constant digs, I missed her. Before the night ended, I pulled her aside in the hallway near the coat closet. "Come to brunch with me tomorrow," I said. "Just you and me, my treat." She looked at me like I'd offered her a poison apple. "Why?" "Because I want to help, if you're open to it." She tilted her head, studied my face. I almost saw the old Haley in there, the one who used to braid my hair before school dances and sneak candy into movie theaters with me. Almost. "We'll see," she said. "Text me the place." Then she was gone, heels clacking down the steps, coat fluttering behind her like a cape she didn't earn. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, Aaron's breathing slow beside me. Why did it feel like I was preparing for battle instead of brunch? The next morning, I arrived early at the rooftop cafe I'd picked, my favorite little spot near uptown Charlotte. It had the kind of calm that made awkward conversations feel slightly less awful. Sunlight streamed through the glass panels, the scent of toasted sourdough and fresh basil wafting through the air. I picked a table tucked in the corner with a good view of the skyline and ordered 2 lattes, 1 oat milk, 1 whole. Haley's preferences hadn't changed in a decade. She showed up 13 minutes late, oversized sunglasses and a camera bag slung dramatically over one shoulder, like she'd just walked off a freelance shoot with Vogue. But the only client she'd had lately was a friend's birthday party, which I knew because she'd posted every angle of the cake. "Wow," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Nice spot. I'm guessing this is where you take all your mentees for their motivational pep talks." I bit the inside of my cheek. We hadn't even ordered food yet. "Just thought we could catch up," I said, handing her the oat milk latte. "And maybe talk about ways you could relaunch your portfolio. Get some traction going again." She blinked behind her glasses. "So this is charity brunch?" "No," I said carefully. "This is me seeing potential in you and wanting to help you actually get paid for your work." Haley sipped her latte. "You mean get paid like you do, sitting in front of a screen all day while apps do the heavy lifting?" I took a breath, counted to 4. I mean leveraging your talent instead of letting it gather dust between Instagram filters. She finally took off her sunglasses. Her eyes were tired, bitter. You know what, Lynn? She said, setting the cup down with a little too much force. Not everyone wants your version of success. Not everyone's dying to have a 9-to-5 and a supportive husband who probably wishes you were around more often. There it was. The real reason we were here. I leaned back in my chair. Aaron supports me because I support him. That's what a partnership is. And I invited you here because I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd want something more stable for yourself. She let out a soft, dry laugh. Stable, like a routine, budgets, let me guess you brought an Excel sheet to map out my future. No spreadsheets, I said, finally smiling despite the tension. Just ideas. I thought maybe you'd want to build something for yourself, something real. She looked out over the balcony, the city buzzing below. I don't need your tech fairy dust, Lindsay, or your perfectly planned life. There was nothing left to say. I signaled for the check. The server brought it over quietly, sensing the atmosphere. As I signed the receipt, I looked up and said, "It wasn't charity, Haley. It was a sister trying to help." Her face softened for half a second, just enough to make me pause. But then she stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "Next time, just send a check and skip the lecture." She walked out with the same dramatic flair she always carried, even when we were kids, and she stormed out of the room because I wouldn't trade snacks at lunch. I sat there a while longer, alone with 2 empty latte cups and a croissant we never touched. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Tired of trying to reach her while she kept swinging at me like I was the enemy. Back home, the silence of my condo wrapped around me like a heavy sweater, warm but constricting. I set my keys down on the kitchen island and reached for the framed photo tucked behind my favorite cookbooks, the one of Grandma June teaching us to budget using colored envelopes and little handwritten labels. In the photo, I'm about 9, grinning as I line up envelopes by category: groceries, rent, rainy day. Haley is slumped on the couch behind us, arms crossed, bored out of her mind. She hated those money talks, called them math class in disguise. I traced my thumb along the edge of the frame, remembering the scent of peppermint tea and the feel of Grandma's wrinkled hands guiding mine. She said planning was for people with no spark. I muttered to no one, echoing the line Haley used more than once back then. It used to make me feel square, unfun, too grown-up for my age. But Grandma had nodded, undeterred. "Spark fizzles fast without a plan to hold the flame," she'd said. I leaned back against the counter, staring at the photo until my eyes blurred. Haley never wanted the map, just the road trip. She rolled the windows down and sang over the GPS until we got lost, and then blamed me for not knowing how to get back. That brunch, that was just another detour she wasn't ready to take seriously. I opened my laptop and clicked through Haley's old portfolio site. The last update was nearly 9 months ago. I recognized most of the photos. Recycled, slightly retouched versions of shoots she'd done for friends. No pricing page, no call to action, just an artsy quote and a contact form that didn't work when I tested it. Still, her eye was there. The angles, the lighting, the mood, it wasn't amateur work. But talent without effort, it was like leaving a masterpiece in a closet. Aaron came home just after 6. He kissed me on the cheek, then paused, sensing my mood. "Did brunch go sideways?" he asked, loosening his tie. "She brought her claws and her appetite," I said with a soft laugh. "Guess which one she used more." He chuckled, then opened the fridge. "Wanna order in tonight?" "I'm fine," I said, "just stuck in my head a bit." He leaned against the island, watching me. "You've always wanted to fix things for her, even when you shouldn't have to." I looked down at the photo again. Maybe I thought if I helped enough, she'd come back, be Haley again, not this version who sees me as the enemy. Aaron nodded. "She's always measured herself against you. But that's not your fault." I knew that, but knowing and feeling aren't always aligned. As I loaded the dishwasher later, my eyes fell on the note Grandma once mailed me during my first year out of college. I'd kept it tucked inside the recipe book near the sink. It read, "Lindsay, the people who resent your growth usually haven't planted anything themselves. Don't shrink to make them comfortable." I closed the dishwasher, leaned against it, and whispered to myself, "But what if they're family?" I didn't have an answer, but something inside me, something old and cautious, began to stir. Because this wasn't the first time Haley had rejected help, and it wasn't the first time she'd played the victim when life didn't go her way. This felt familiar, too familiar. and I was starting to suspect that history wasn't just repeating itself, it was accelerating. It was a Tuesday afternoon, unseasonably warm for October. I was on a client call, half listening to an engineer explain why our rollout was delayed again when my phone lit up with Haley's name. Twice, 3 times. I muted the meeting and answered on the 4th ring, heart suddenly pounding. Haley never called, she texted, usually sarcastically or only when she needed something. "Haley," I said, her voice was trembling. "Linz, it's Trevor." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" She inhaled sharply, as if bracing herself. "He's sick, really sick, back issues again, but worse this time. He needs injections, some kind of therapy that insurance won't cover. They're talking long-term care, maybe months." Silence pressed on the line between us. "I wouldn't ask, but," her voice cracked, "I don't know what else to do. The bills are already coming in." I sat frozen, one hand still on my keyboard, the cursor blinking on an unfinished email. "How much are we talking?" I asked softly. $5,000 to start, probably more later. I can send over the paperwork. I mean, if you can even help, I know you're busy with your life." She added that last part like it tasted sour. "I can help," I said, surprising myself with the speed of my reply. "Let me talk to Aaron, but we'll figure something out." A pause. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. I didn't know who else to call. After we hung up, I stared at the call log, something tightening in my chest. I couldn't decide if it was compassion or caution. That evening, I explained everything to Aaron as we sat at our little kitchen table. He listened quietly, chewing his burger like it might suddenly reveal wisdom. "She says it's not covered," he asked finally. "Yeah, said insurance won't touch it. Sounds experimental or maybe not urgent enough," he frowned. "Did she send the paperwork?" "Not yet, said she'd get it from the clinic." Aaron leaned back. "Do you trust her?" That question hit harder than it should have. "I want to," I said. "I want to believe this will bring us closer again, maybe. If I support her through this, she'll see I've always been on her side." He didn't respond right away. Then gently, "Let's just hope she's being honest this time." Hope, that quiet, fragile flicker. I clung to it as I opened my banking app later that night and set up a recurring monthly transfer to Haley's account. $500 to start. Automatic. Quiet. No fanfare. Just love in spreadsheet form. The next morning, I texted Haley to let her know. She replied with a string of heart emojis and "You're the best sister in the world." It felt good. It felt right. Aaron didn't say much about it again. He knew when to step back. He trusted me to manage my own boundaries, even when mine sometimes bent too far in the name of family. In the days that followed, I tried to lean into that hope. I sent Haley little care packages. Lavender tea, fuzzy socks, a gift card to her favorite bakery. I figured if Trevor was hurting, she probably was too. She always did cry more when he was in pain. I even mentioned it to my mom during one of our weekly check-ins. "She didn't tell us much," Mom admitted. "Just said Trevor was having a rough time. I'm proud of you, Lindsay. That's what sisters are for." I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. Because something about it was already starting to itch. Trevor hadn't posted anything about his health. No Instagram captions about being grateful for strength or resilience. No signs of hospital visits. Just photos of lattes, sunsets, and one of him at a Panthers game, grinning behind mirrored sunglasses. I told myself not to overthink it. People post happy things to distract from hard times. But that flicker of doubt, it was back. I ignored it. I buried it. Because this was my sister, and I wanted to believe her. Summer came slowly to Charlotte that year. The air grew thick and golden, the kind that makes everything look prettier than it really is. Maybe that's why I didn't see it right away, the subtle shift, the way connections started unraveling thread by thread. It began with missed calls, then vague texts. "Sorry, super slammed today. Can't talk, Trevor had a rough night." "Rain check on lunch." I wasn't trying to smother her. I was trying to support her. But every time I reached out, Haley seemed more distant. Her words were all gratitude, but her tone, hollow, like she was reading thank yous off a script. Aaron noticed it first. "She hasn't called in weeks," he said one evening as we cleaned up after dinner. "And when she texts, it's always short, no photos, no updates." I shrugged. "She's probably overwhelmed. Caregiving takes a toll." He nodded, but something in his eyes flickered. We'd sent 5 payments by then, almost $3,000 total. Every transfer was automated, and every month I got a notification from my bank with the same sterile message. Recurring transaction complete. Hope doesn't usually come with a receipt. At the start of July, we hosted our annual cookout, our little tradition for friends, neighbors, and whatever family decided to drop by. We always kept it low-key. Burgers on the grill, cornhole in the yard, classic rock on the speakers. I invited Haley, of course. She said she might swing by if Trevor was up to it. When I saw them walk through the gate 2 hours in, my heart actually lifted. Trevor was laughing, carrying a cooler, wearing a grill master apron. I froze mid-sip of lemonade. Aaron, standing beside me, lowered his sunglasses. "Guess the injections worked," he said flatly. Trevor didn't look like a man in chronic pain. He moved with ease, tossing beanbags with our neighbor's kid, lifting patio chairs without hesitation, chasing after Haley when she laughed and ran from his tickle threats. I watched from the deck, trying to reconcile what I saw with what I'd been told. Haley barely made eye contact with me. She smiled, made small talk, complimented my potato salad. But it was all off. She kept the conversation light, as if steering us away from anything that might make her flinch. When I pulled her aside in the kitchen to ask how things were going, she waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, you know," she said. "Good days and bad, today just happened to be a good one." Then she hugged me too tightly and left half an hour later without saying goodbye to anyone else. That night, Aaron and I sat on the porch swing while the grill cooled. "She didn't even flinch when Trevor lifted that keg," he said. "Did you notice?" I did. And she said he was still getting treatments. I nodded. We both knew something was wrong, but I wasn't ready to say it out loud yet. "She'll come around," I said. "Maybe once things stabilize again." Aaron didn't argue. He just put his arm around me and whispered, "You've got a good heart, Lynn, but maybe it's time to start protecting it." Thanksgiving came with its usual chaos. Pies cooling on the counter, football blaring in the living room, my mother asking everyone if the turkey was too dry before anyone had even taken a bite. But beneath the holiday warmth, something felt off. Haley and Trevor were the first to arrive. They strolled in like they hadn't missed months of calls, arms full of wine bottles and some kind of artisanal stuffing. Haley was glowing, all smoky eye and fresh manicure. Trevor looked like he'd stepped out of a GQ fall fashion shoot, trimmed beard, camel coat, not a trace of pain in his movements. Aaron and I shared a glance over the mashed potatoes. Something wasn't adding up. Trevor made the rounds with his usual charm, hoisting chairs, carrying trays, reaching for second and third helpings like a man with zero physical limitations. I watched him lift a cast-iron Dutch oven from the stove without so much as a grunt. My stomach clenched. Aaron leaned in close as we sat at the dining table. "Guess that back pain isn't slowing him down," he whispered, tone dry as cinnamon. I forced a laugh, but I felt the shift, like something internal had slid out of place. And Haley. She was thriving, laughing too loudly at every joke, clinking glasses with cousins she used to avoid, even making a show of adjusting Trevor's collar and calling him my rock. She didn't look like a woman under pressure. No exhaustion, no edge, just polished confidence. While Mom passed around her cranberry orange compote, I stared at my plate, suddenly nauseous. Had I really been sending money to someone hosting dinner parties and buying imported wines? After dessert, Aaron caught me watching Haley and Trevor from the living room doorway. They were curled up on the couch, giggling at something on his phone, completely oblivious to the swirl of tension around them. "I don't think there's a treatment," I whispered. Aaron looked at me gently, sadly. "I don't think there ever was." I stayed quiet on the drive home, my arms crossed tight over my chest, the heater humming useless warmth at my feet. "Could have been a flare-up that resolved," I said at one point, more to myself than to Aaron. "Could have been," he agreed, not pressing. "But do you really believe that?" I didn't answer, because the truth was pressing against my ribs now, sharp and urgent. I had wanted so badly to believe that helping Haley would heal our bond, that love could be bank transferred and reimbursed with gratitude. But gratitude was hard to find between Haley's perfect winged eyeliner and Trevor's third serving of stuffing. That night, as I got ready for bed, I stared at my own reflection. I saw the fine lines forming at the corners of my eyes, the tiredness I'd ignored for weeks, all the energy I had poured into fixing something that might have been broken long before I ever noticed. Aaron appeared in the doorway, toothbrush in hand. "You okay?" "I don't think she ever sent that paperwork," I said softly. He nodded. "You gonna ask her?" "Not yet," I said, brushing a stray hair from my face. "But I think I need to start finding answers." I didn't sleep much after Thanksgiving. It wasn't the food, or the wine. It was the image of Trevor, laughing, lifting, eating like he hadn't a care in the world. etched into my brain like a watermark I couldn't scrub out. By Monday morning, I knew what I had to do. I told Aaron I was working from home, then drove to the hospital Haley had casually mentioned during one of her vague updates months ago, Carolina Regional Medical. A modern building with curved glass walls and carefully landscaped hedges. It looked like a place where people got answers. Maybe I would too. Inside, everything smelled like sanitizer and weak coffee. A receptionist in navy scrubs looked up with a polite smile. "Hi there, how can I help you?" I stepped forward, my heart thudding hard. "Hi, I'm trying to confirm if a family member is receiving treatment here. He may be registered under Trevor Martin." Her fingers tapped rapidly across the keyboard. "Is he currently inpatient or outpatient?" "I'm not sure. My sister just said he was undergoing physical therapy, possibly injections. I was hoping to verify if he's in the system." The receptionist nodded, tapping more keys. I tried not to fidget. After a few moments, she looked up. "I'm sorry, we don't have anyone by that name currently receiving care, and I'm not seeing any past appointments either." I blinked. "Nothing at all. Not here," she said gently. I stepped back, murmuring a quiet thank you as the air seemed to vanish from my lungs. I walked out into the crisp, cloudless morning, my boots crunching on gravel, and leaned against my car. Trevor had never been here. No injections, no therapy, no back injury that required thousands in out-of-pocket expenses. The truth didn't just unravel. It detonated. I slid into the driver's seat and sat in silence, my fingers white-knuckling the steering wheel. How long had she been lying? How many times had she looked me in the eye and accepted my help, my money, my hope, knowing it was built on fiction? I drove aimlessly for a while, not ready to go home. My thoughts spun faster than the tires, each one chasing the last. The payments, the disappearing communication, the evasive texts, her sudden glow-up. It all lined up now, but I still didn't understand why. Had she needed the money for something else? Was Trevor even in on it? Or was I just the easiest mark, big sister with the good job, predictable as sunrise? By the time I walked back into my apartment, Aaron was on a video call. He muted himself when he saw my face. "Well," he asked. I sank into the couch and said the words I couldn't believe. "He was never there." Aaron's jaw tightened, but he didn't look surprised. "She's lying," I said. "This whole time, it was all fake." He reached for my hand. "I'm sorry." I shook my head, tears pricking behind my eyes. "She let me believe he was sick, that she was struggling. She let me believe I was helping." Aaron pulled me into his arms, and for a long time we just sat there, the truth hanging heavy in the air between us. I'd been deceived by my sister, and not just once but repeatedly, with intent, with precision, and with zero shame. That night my apartment was too quiet, not peacefully quiet, restless quiet. The kind where your thoughts echo louder than footsteps and your own heartbeat feels accusatory. I tried to read, tried to clean, opened a bottle of wine, then just stared at it. I couldn't let it go. Something was still gnawing at me, some thread I hadn't tugged on yet, and then it hit me. I walked into the living room where Aaron was scrolling through something on his tablet. "When I first told you about Trevor's treatment," I said slowly, "you asked if I trusted Haley." Aaron looked up. "Yeah, but you never really answered for yourself. Did you believe her?" He didn't speak right away. That pause, it said more than words. I took a step closer. "Aaron," he finally set the tablet down, "I believed you believed her, but no, I didn't buy the whole story." I just stood there. "Since when?" "Since the second call," he said quietly. "The one where she said it was out of pocket and needed recurring support. That felt off." "So you thought she was lying?" My voice cracked, not with anger yet, but with disbelief. He exhaled. "I thought maybe it was exaggerated, maybe not a total lie. I figured if something was really going on, she'd offer paperwork or some kind of update. But nothing came, and I didn't want to push you." I was stunned. "You let me keep sending money," I said slowly, "for months. You watched me scramble to make room in our budget, adjust our savings goals, skip our weekend trips, and you never said a word. I didn't want to make you feel like you were being naive," he said, standing up. "You were trying to help your sister. I respected that. But I also knew how hard you've worked for everything, and I didn't want to watch you get taken advantage of. But you did." The words slipped out, low and bitter. "You watched, silently." Aaron ran a hand through his hair. "What was I supposed to do, Lynn? Say I don't think your sister's sick? Accuse her without proof? That would have just made you defend her harder." I flinched. Because honestly, he wasn't wrong. Still, I needed someone to hold up a mirror. I needed someone to ask the hard questions before I got in too deep. "I thought you'd get there on your own," he said gently. "You always do." I shook my head. You trusted me to figure it out, but you didn't trust me enough to be honest with me. Aaron's eyes dropped to the floor. I didn't want to be the reason you lost your sister. I turned away, arms folded tightly across my chest. You didn't want to be the bad guy. He didn't deny it, and that said everything. I walked to the kitchen, pretending to need water, but really just needing space to breathe, to absorb what I'd just heard. It wasn't like Aaron had schemed or lied, but still, there was betrayal in omission, especially when it was paired with silence. I had trusted him with my instincts, my fears. I had read him texts out loud, shared every gut feeling. And all that time he had known or suspected, and he'd let me walk straight into the trap. I leaned against the counter and stared at the tiled floor. So Haley had lied with words, and Aaron had lied with stillness. They were different sins, but they bruised the same. He came over after a while, slower than usual, careful. Linz, his voice was soft. I'm sorry, I should have said something sooner. I turned to him. No more should haves. His mouth shut instantly. I don't need fixing, I said, my voice low and steady. If I'm heading toward a fall, don't protect me by stepping back. Warn me. Challenge me, be my mirror even when I don't want to look into it. Aaron nodded, eyes glassy. You're right. I sighed and ran a hand down my face. This wasn't just about money, Aaron. It was about believing in the story someone's telling you. And she told me the saddest one I could hear, and I paid to keep listening. That night, we went to bed in silence. We didn't fight, didn't cry, but something between us cracked. Not a break, just a fracture, a quiet one. And I didn't know yet how long it would take to heal. By Friday morning, I was done second-guessing. I'd replayed the hospital visit too many times in my mind. I dissected every moment at Thanksgiving, every comment, every shared look between Haley and Trevor. But there was one person I still hadn't heard from directly. Trevor. If Haley had manipulated me, maybe she had manipulated him too. Or maybe they were in on it together. I needed to know, and I needed to hear it from him, so I sent him a text. Hey, Trevor, can we meet up, just us? I need to go over some insurance forms, shouldn't take long. He responded 10 minutes later. Sure, coffee bean on Hawthorne. I arrived early and grabbed a quiet corner table. My laptop open. A folder with printed bank statements next to my mug. I wasn't here to be dramatic, I was here for answers. Trevor walked in wearing a worn flannel and jeans, looking perfectly healthy, perfectly casual. He spotted me and gave a friendly wave before walking over. Hey, Linz, everything okay? He asked as he sat down, slinging his jacket over the chair. I gave a tight smile. That depends. His brow furrowed. What's going on? I slid the folder toward him. I need you to look through these and tell me exactly what you thought this money was for. He blinked, visibly confused. Then flipped through the papers, monthly transfers from my bank account, each labeled in Haley's handwriting as medical support. Trevor's face shifted from confusion to alarm. I don't understand. Haley said you needed treatment, I said evenly. She told me insurance wouldn't cover it, that it was urgent, chronic back issues, months of physical therapy. He stared at me, eyes wide. Lindsay, I never had any treatment. My breath caught. I thought this was some kind of freelance grant, he continued, looking pale. That you were supporting Haley's photography business. She said it was one of those mentorship things through your company, that it was your idea. I sat back, heart pounding. She told you that I was funding her work, I asked. Trevor nodded. She even showed me a fake letterhead once, said it was confidential. I didn't think to question it. I could barely process what I was hearing. Haley had invented an entire fake program. Lied to both of us. Kept the truth from her own husband while quietly siphoning thousands from me month after month. Trevor looked genuinely shaken. She told me the money was a boost, that you'd insisted. I thought you were just being generous. She made me believe you were sick, Trevor. She said you were in and out of treatment centers. He stared at the floor, jaw clenched. That's why she always changed the subject when I talked about seeing you too. She kept saying you were too busy, that it wasn't a good time to reconnect. A silence settled between us, thick with betrayal and disbelief. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. She used my name to open credit accounts. Some of the cards are in your name. She listed me as a co-signer. Trevor's head snapped up. What? I opened a folder on my laptop and showed him a PDF I'd downloaded earlier that morning. One of the newer credit accounts tied to both of us. Her email, her phone number. Trevor pushed back from the table, stunned. I didn't authorize anything. I never saw this. Then she's not just lying, I said. She's committing fraud. He sat with his head in his hands, breathing deeply. I trusted her, he murmured. I thought we were finally stabilizing. I had no idea she'd gone this far. I nodded slowly. I wanted to believe her too. He looked at me, eyes full of guilt. What are you going to do? I'm cutting her off completely. She'll hear it from me and from the bank. The rest, I haven't decided yet. Trevor sat quietly for a long moment, then whispered, I'm sorry. And he meant it. I could see it in the way his shoulders sagged, the way the betrayal clung to his skin like smoke. He wasn't the con artist. He was collateral damage, just like me. As we gathered our things and prepared to leave, I said one more thing. Trevor, when you go home today, just look around and ask yourself how much of what you've been living is real. He nodded, his expression heavy. I think I already know the answer. Trevor came over that night after I texted him the address. He didn't even ask why. He just showed up with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder and a hard expression that didn't match the soft-spoken man I'd met at the cafe. Whatever faith he had left in Haley, it had evaporated sometime between our coffee and his drive over. Aaron stayed in the living room while Trevor and I set up in the study. He knew this wasn't just about marriage or money anymore. It was about truth, about boundaries finally breaking like glass under pressure. I had already started printing. Bank statements, credit applications, loan documents, every digital trail Haley had left with my name or Trevor's on it. Trevor leaned over the desk, eyes darting across the pages. She opened these without consent, he said slowly, voice tight. She forged signatures. Look, this one's dated the same week I was out of town for work. She couldn't have gotten my permission. And these two, I added, were rooted to a P.O. box under her name. I didn't even know she had one. Lindsay, he said quietly, this isn't just sneaky, it's illegal. I knew that, but hearing it from someone else, it felt like a final nail in the illusion. We organized the documents into piles, monthly transfers, unauthorized accounts, email receipts where she'd listed me as an employer for a fake photography grant. I even found a document with a forged logo from my company, claiming I'd awarded Haley a $10,000 creative entrepreneur stipend. She'd been methodical, deliberate, smart, too smart. Trevor ran a hand through his hair, pacing. And the worst part, she let me believe she was thriving, like her business was finally taking off. He paused by the window. I remember. I asked her a few months ago if she wanted help setting up a proper LLC, maybe get a real portfolio going. She snapped at me, told me not to interfere, said she had her own systems now. I swallowed. Those systems were built on lies and bank fraud. He turned back to me. You still planning to confront her? Yes, I said firmly. At the next family dinner. Trevor raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to do it in front of everyone? She made this public the moment she started lying to everyone and smiling through it at family events. I want people to see it, to hear it. Trevor hesitated. Then I'll back you if you need me there. I looked up at him, surprised. You'd do that? She lied to both of us. If she's going to face the truth, she can face us. I nodded, touched by his calm resolve. Trevor wasn't the villain here. He'd been lied to, manipulated, and used as a prop in a performance he didn't even know he was in. And now, just like me, he wanted closure. I sent an email to my bank that night flagging the suspicious accounts and halting all future transfers to Haley's routing number. And then I did one more thing. I emailed Haley herself. Hey, wanted to give you a heads up, I spoke with the bank today. There were some irregularities I had to clarify. We'll talk soon. No questions, no panic, just a calm line of fire aimed directly at the heart of her scheme. She didn't reply, but I knew she read it. The next day, her Instagram went dark. No stories, no posts, no curated lattes or whimsical photos of Trevor tying his shoes like some Pinterest husband, just silence. It was almost funny how quickly people retreat when the walls start closing in. Aaron came into the study as I was packing up the folders, quietly surveying the evidence on the desk. You did the right thing, he said. I nodded, but my voice was flat. It doesn't feel good. Justice rarely does, he replied. I looked at him for a long moment. You think I was too slow to act? No, he said gently. I think you loved her too much to believe she'd ever do this to you. That stopped me cold, because it was true. Love doesn't blind you, it warps you, makes you see the version of someone you want to be true, not the one they've shown you over and over again. But that version of Haley, the one I kept hoping for, she didn't exist, not anymore. It was almost poetic, really. Another family dinner, another performance. Except this time, I wasn't the one playing pretend. Haley arrived 20 minutes late, as usual, breezing in like a lifestyle blogger who had accidentally walked into a therapy session. She wore a new leather jacket, real leather I'd bet, and carried a gift bag that rustled with tissue paper as she hugged our mother. "Just a little something for the table," she chirped. "Figured we could all use a treat." Trevor arrived separately. He nodded at her across the room but said nothing. She barely looked at him. I watched from the kitchen doorway, letting the scene settle. She moved from cousin to aunt, all smiles, pouring wine, tossing compliments like confetti. I could almost admire the performance if I didn't know what it was built on. But I wasn't here to play her game. As dessert was served, I leaned over to Aaron. "Now," I whispered. He gave a small nod. I stood up slowly, letting my fork clink gently against the side of my glass. The room quieted. Few cousins glanced up, expecting a toast. "Can I say something?" I asked, voice calm. Haley, mid-laugh, paused with her fork in the air. "Of course," Mom said, smiling. "Go ahead, sweetie." I turned to Haley, holding her gaze. "Your new car looks great," I said. She blinked, caught off guard. "Thanks, just something reliable, used, of course." "And Trevor," I continued, "you're looking really well. I guess the treatment worked miracles." He didn't answer. Haley laughed, but it was a shade too sharp. "Don't be bitter, Linz." "I'm not," I said. "Not anymore. I'm just done pretending." She narrowed her eyes. "Pretending what?" "That you're struggling, that you needed help, that I wasn't funding your life while you lied to my face." The room stilled. Haley froze, eyes flickering around the table, searching for an exit that didn't exist. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, come on." I stepped forward, holding up a folder. "Bank records, fake invoices, a fake company grant you forged under my name. Credit cards opened in Trevor's and my name. Want to keep going?" Her face drained of color. Trevor stood up next to me, his voice steady. "She used both of us, lied to both of us." Aunt Valerie gasped. Our mother looked between us, completely stunned. "Haley," I said, my voice quiet now. "You didn't just lie to me. You built an entire story, one that let you smile at our table and take money with no shame." She dropped her fork. This is insane." I opened the folder and slid a paper across the table. "Your financial planner called. The transfers are canceled. The credit cards are frozen. The bank's investigating the fraud." Her phone buzzed. Right on cue. Everyone heard the voice through the speaker. "Haley, it's Mark. I just got word your accounts were flagged and your payments from Lindsay's account have been halted. Call me immediately." She fumbled to silence it, but the damage was done. I turned to the family. "She lied about all of it. Trevor was never in treatment. I have the hospital's statement here, and every cent I sent her went to personal spending." Mom covered her mouth. Cousin Jaden whispered, "Oh my God." Trevor looked at her, voice low and broken. "You lied to your husband, you used my name, you let me thank you for keeping our finances steady while you were tanking them behind my back." Haley stood up, defiant, like a cornered animal. "I was drowning, okay? I needed help." No one cared unless I made it sound tragic. I didn't ask to be the broke one. You all made me feel like I was failing just by not having a tech job or a husband who built apps. "You made yourself the victim," I said, "and then used it to justify stealing from people who trusted you." She looked at me, something raw flashing in her eyes. "You always thought you were better than me." "I wanted to believe we were equals," I replied. "That's why I helped you." Her voice cracked. "You pity me." "No," I said. "I loved you and you turned it into a hustle." She opened her mouth, but no words came. Mom finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Haley, how could you?" Haley stared at the table, lips trembling. Then she turned and walked out, no apology, no explanation, just the quiet echo of her heels fading down the hallway. I stood frozen for a moment. The room buzzed with whispers and questions, but I didn't hear any of them. Trevor put a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," he murmured. I nodded slowly. But it didn't feel victorious, just necessary. Sometimes justice looks like a family dinner. Sometimes the truth is dessert. The days after the dinner felt like walking through a burnt-out building. Nothing exploded exactly, but everything had changed. Haley didn't reach out. Not to me, not to Trevor, not to Mom. Instead, the silence settled in like soot. The family text thread went quiet too, no memes, no casserole photos, no look how big the twins are getting. It was like everyone was collectively waiting to see what the aftershock would bring. Trevor moved out the next week. Not permanently, at least, that's what he told me, but he needed space. Space to think. To untangle his life from someone he thought he knew. "She's not even trying to explain," he said during one of our walks around the neighborhood. She sent me 2 texts. One was, "You made me look like a monster." The other just said, "You never understood the pressure I was under." I didn't reply. What could I say that wasn't already screaming in both of our silences? Haley had always worn resentment like perfume, undetectable until you got close, and then impossible to ignore. And now, she was drowning in it. The car was the first thing to go. She sold it privately within a few days, likely trying to recover what she could before legal trouble caught up. The bank had officially flagged her for fraud involving my name, and she'd received notice of potential consequences. But I didn't press charges. I froze the accounts, revoked my authorization, and let her feel the fallout of lost access, not prosecution. Maybe that was mercy. Maybe it was weakness, but it felt right. Aaron and I had started talking again, really talking. Long walks after dinner. No screens, no distractions, just two people trying to rebuild the quiet spaces between them. "I should have warned you," he said one night, "but I also think you had to see it yourself. Nothing I said would have reached you until it hit this hard." "I know," I admitted. "I hated watching it," he added. "Watching you give so much, knowing she wasn't giving anything back." We both stared at the darkening sky for a long while. "She could have just asked for help," I murmured. No lies. No manipulation, just honesty. "But then she wouldn't have been in control," he said. "Some people can't accept help unless they twist it into something they can own." That stayed with me, because Haley didn't just want help, she wanted power. She wanted to be the one who beat the system while still reaping its rewards. Mom called me a few days later. "She came by," she said. "Haley, she returned the necklace I lent her last Christmas. Didn't say much, just left it on the porch." "Did she say anything about what happened?" "She said she was sorry, but not for what she did, just for how it came out." I closed my eyes. That was Haley, never apologizing for the fire, just the smoke it left behind. "She needs to face it," I said gently, "not just sweep it under the rug." "I think she's trying," Mom said softly, "in her own Haley way." I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I'd stopped needing her to try. I needed peace more than I needed repair. A year later, the house was quiet, but not empty. Our new tradition was smaller, simpler, and filled with people who showed up with more than just gift bags and excuses. Aaron lit the candles as I placed the last dish on the table. Roasted root vegetables, sage stuffing, a cranberry tart my cousin Jaden insisted on making even though it never quite set. It didn't matter. The room glowed with laughter, with healing. Trevor was here too, not back with Haley, but steadier. He'd gotten his own place across town, picked up therapy, and started rebuilding his photography business. Real clients, real invoices. He looked healthier than I'd ever seen him. "So what are you thankful for?" I asked, raising my glass as we all settled in. Jaden smirked. "Not being the topic of a family scandal this year." We all laughed, even Trevor. Aaron reached for my hand under the table. I squeezed his back. My parents were here too, a little grayer, a little gentler. The Haley situation had aged them in ways none of us admitted aloud. But they'd stopped trying to fix what wasn't theirs to mend. Haley wasn't here. Not invited. Not punished. Just absent. She'd sent a card, no return address, just a folded piece of linen paper that read, "Thank you for saving me from myself. I'm trying. I hope you are too." No name, but it didn't need one. Aaron asked what I wanted to do with it. I said, keep it, not as a memory, but as a reminder. That healing isn't always a reunion. Sometimes it's a real goodbye. After dinner, I stood by the window, watching the snow begin to fall. Jaden was showing Trevor a new camera lens. Mom was humming in the kitchen. Aaron poured tea, the quiet kind that only comes after a year of loud. This was mine, not the chaos I used to beg for, not the love I tried to force into someone else's shape, just truth. Warm, small, real. Aaron came to stand beside me. "You okay?" I nodded. "Better than okay." And I meant it, because somewhere along the way I stopped trying to save people who didn't want saving and started choosing people who already knew how to stay. "Boundaries," I said softly, "aren't punishment. They're protection," he finished. We clinked mugs and I smiled. Haley's absence no longer hollowed out the room. It simply left space. Space we filled with honesty, with earned trust, with peace, and that was the real gift. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. Have you ever had to rebuild your definition of family? Of love? Of trust? Share your story in the comments. I read them all. And if you ever wonder whether cutting someone off is cruel, remember, boundaries are not punishment. They're proof you finally value your own peace. Subscribe for more true feeling stories of betrayal, clarity, and emotional comeback.